let me now invite Gaurav Bhatia. At Penn, Gaurav is the Chief Marketing Officer and Digital Experience Officer at PenFed Credit Union. In his current role, he's responsible for the growth, marketing strategy and execution, and digital experience for PenFed across all channels, digital and traditional. Under his leadership, PenFed's marketing team is continuing to invest in state-of-the-art marketing tech stacks, such as building a data warehouse, growing PenFed's member relations management, maximizing the capabilities of tools like Adobe and Salesforce, and leveraging data to personalize their marketing. Forward thinking, creativity, and willingness to take thoughtful, measured risks to drive outcomes are the qualities that have made Gaurav Bhatia a renowned leader today. He's adept at anticipating future challenges and pivoting to meet unexpected challenges like the ones we've been having. He also understands the rapid changes within the industry. Gaurav's experience enables him to drive revenue while being a respected and compassionate leader. Prior to PenFed, he worked as the Chief Digital Officer at New Day USA and as the Vice President of Digital Strategy at AARP. He has also had senior leadership roles in companies such as NIIT, Capital One, and Sabre. Gaurav, we're so thrilled to have you deliver the Lemnisk Customer Data Platform Summit keynote this morning. Without further ado, Gaurav, the stage is all yours.
And thank you, Subra, for the kind introduction. I didn't realize that we've, as a team, has accomplished so much. So what I'm going to talk to you guys about is basically the view from a business standpoint and really about how marketing has evolved in the last decade. My background, like Subra was very kind enough, I've had different roles in different organizations. Some were product, some were technology, some was strategy, but eventually now lead PenFed. It's a $28 billion financial institution, 2.3 million members based in McLean, Virginia. So if you don't mind, Joy, next slide, please. So this is kind of how I view the changes in marketing over the last 10 years. When I started my journey, I mean, people who've been in the industry, I said 15, 20 years, they probably remember it. Marketing was only about advertising. So you put an ad on television and direct mail, you get your leads, and that's about it. Over the last 5 or 7 years, as probably about 8 years, it's really kind of morphed to more about direct marketing and really something we call performance marketing, which could be Google paid search. And the digital capabilities have evolved over time. So now we have the web, we have the email, we have the mobile app. And what people really kind of did was really they took all their traditional marketing and applied onto the internet and said, okay, yeah, now instead of reaching over television, now let's just do advertising over the internet. And that was basically about from 2012 to about 2018. And then over the last 5 years, with all the technology, the MarTech stack evolving, we really have become very sophisticated. And the end-to-end marketing has really become the focus on brands. Because if you are running marketing or you're running a leadership position in your organization, your CFO and CEO are really going to ask you, hey, I'm giving you X million dollars. Where's my ROI? And what's my cost per acquisition? What revenue can you generate? So I have a fundamental belief that marketers have become more growth leaders and they really have become revenue drivers. And to really make sense of it all, they really need to understand data, they really need to use data, and they really need to talk the language in terms of technology and experiences. What does it take to get their revenue? So I fundamentally believe that marketing has become a very tough profession. It's really become very exciting also. But also, I think the opportunity exists for marketers to kind of think through is, do they have the right data to make decisions? 10 years ago, they did not have the luxury. So I think we've been very fortunate, if you are kind of forward looking, to kind of say, how can you join the entire ecosystem together? And as we evolve, you know that artificial intelligence, even though it's not very mature, is going to really come in and make marketers' job even easier, because we don't have to sift through mounds and mounds of data to make decisions. Things can be done on the fly for us. Dynamic marketing, we already leveraging is, I mean, example I'll use is now you can actually take 4 creative concepts and 4 different subject lines and all marry together on the fly and then target a different audience. You couldn't do it 5 years ago. I think the technology is matured. But I think our thinking has to really evolve to take advantage of all the tools which are available for us. In my next slide. So this is kind of, I mean, you guys have seen it, is, I mean, the touch points are huge today. I mean, I think you have close to about 1,000 to 2,000 interactions any brand can have with the customers all across the journey. And we mapped out at PenFed, we probably had about 30 to about 60 touch points at a given time to a prospect customer. And you can't even measure every touch point, and you probably don't even know what impact it has essentially on your cost per acquisition, your revenue. But we know that customer interact with us in all these channels. And the underlying theme I use basically is data and experience is going to be very important, but technology is going to be the key. Is can you deliver the experience in real time? And do you have the right marketing strategy, and do you have the data to define everything? So this is kind of at a high level is what customers expect. And most of the brands will probably do some of it, but a good brand and leader will probably do everything on this kind of chart. And you'll see that the top of the line is digital experiences, bottom is physical. So I think it has to be a combination of physical and digital. While digital is really kind of leading the way in the pandemic, there is something to be said about the physical touch point. It could be a call to a contact center. It could be walking into a retail location. It could be picking up your food at a restaurant, which you kind of ordered online. So I'll say that 70% of our focus is going to be digital, but 30% still has value in terms of really kind of having the human to human interaction with your customer. So I know I hear a lot of things in 2022. Yeah, it's going to be 100% digital. Contact center is going to get killed. Retail location is going to get decimated. But I fundamentally don't believe that's the truth. That most of transactions will happen online, but there has to be something said about your physical one-to-one interaction, and that will change over time. So that's kind of my view in terms of what we need to kind of look at as a marketer. Complicated customer touch points, 100 to 1,000 interactions on a daily basis, but you have to focus on the experience, technology, and the data piece of it. Next slide, please. So this is kind of, I think, as I look at marketing is, I mean, if you talk to your C-level suite and it's what's above, you basically see the iceberg is what people see is the tip of the iceberg is, yeah, I need to do my email. I need to do basically my social media. I need to do X, Y, and Z. But what really needs to happen is really below, if you look at the iceberg below the water, and that's basically 90% of the work, which really people don't account for and think is, yeah, it's a lot easier. So I'll probably say, marketing 10 to 20% is what you see, and 80% is below the line or below the water is how do you really, do you have the right CRM? Do you have the right data? Are you looking at insights? Are you looking at basically your channel performance and marketing operations? This is where I think we need to invest in, because when I start my marketing journey, I really want to make sure that we are focusing on both. And the hardest part was, I'll say, below the water, right? The 80% of the iceberg, which people really don't see and understand the value. And sometimes your CEO will probably question you saying, yeah, I'm giving you $1 million. So why are you spending like $400,000 on technology and data? Can't you just put ads out there? I think that's going to be a tough conversations. But eventually, I think you have to be able to build the bottom in order to get and build the top, right? So I think that's going to be important. It's hard to convince executives, but that's the only way you'll get the funding and you'll probably have success. The next slide, please. So I think when I lead any transformation, whether it's marketing or business, I really kind of put out this slide is, do you want to be Best Buy or do you want to be Sears? For people who kind of are old enough to know what Sears was, it was basically largest retail operation. And last I looked at the data, I think almost 2 years ago before the pandemic, they had 137 to 140 million customers or basically email addresses on their file, but they did not leverage any of them as they started moving towards transformation. Best Buy, on the other side, used customer data. They understood behavior. They used insights and really kind of doubled down on the retail presence based on the data they had. Sears ignored the data, and Best Buy kind of leveraged the data. And if you look at the market cap of Best Buy, I don't think Sears kind of exists the way it is. So I think that's basically the power in saying, I mean, where do you want to be? And these are kind of reminders I have to myself every month, every say, hey, we really need to invest. We may not have the ROI immediately, but if we don't, we might just be following the case study of Sears, and no brand wants to be Sears. So I think that's kind of an honest way of looking and planning. Next slide, please. So I think when I start, I think you can use as a template. Subra touched on this. Certain kind of templates I use, certain kind of frameworks I use. As you kind of try to sell the vision to your leadership, is I think the first and foremost, I define the vision, and then how do you execute? And for me, kind of it's these four things which really matter. Is any brand has to be customer centric. They need to make decisions based on data. We don't have the luxury of $1 billion like JP Morgan Chase or maybe Capital One to spend on marketing where you can spray and pray. So we have to be thoughtful in terms of where we want to spend our dollars. And you really need to kind of have a dynamic marketing and sales organization. Is that marketing drives the leads. If you're B2B, sales executes on it. You measure end to end in terms of how much money you spend, what's the customer acquisition cost, and how you're doing on that. And we have to be able to leverage technology. Today, it's not a choice. 7 years ago, you could argue, yeah, we don't have all the data. Today, everything exists. Everything is automated. You can leverage a marketing stack, whether you use the, I'll say, state-of-the-art marketing technology stack you could pay $1 million for, or you use mid-tier technology stack, you still need it. You need to automate things and just take it from there. The customer centricity really allows you to have a central view of the customer, and then you can use data essentially to kind of drive your marketing technology, and essentially use your integrated marketing channels to drive your marketing, and then obviously use the technology piece of it. So this has kind of been my kind of guideline in terms of how do you transform a brand, what are the four pillars you want to use, and all these four are important, and you have metrics behind it. So this has kind of been my playbook over the last 5-7 years to take it forward. Next slide, please. So I think when I start, I think I always take a step back and saying, guys, I mean, what do you want to do? I think a lot of people just jump into tactics and saying, hey, we have a data problem. Let's get a CDP or a CRM. Oh, we have an experience problem. Let's redo the entire website. But I always want to take a step back and saying, where are we today, right? Is what's the business landscape? Because some industries, for example, if you're healthcare, or government, is probably going to transform a little slowly. So yeah, there are issues. So landscape, you have a little bit more time. But if you are in retail or travel or food delivery, there's no way you could actually not do 100% digital, because the landscape has changed over the last 2 years, and that's the need of the hour. You look at the business landscape, then you understand in terms of where can you spend in terms of marketing. For example, our target market is between 45 to 65 years old. And a lot of people came to me and saying, hey, we need to do TikTok. And I looked at the data and said, okay, less than 0.1% of my audience on TikTok. So I really wouldn't invest in it. For me, Facebook works. So I think you really have to kind of understand where your customer is and design your marketing landscape around it. And one of the things we are doing is we are over investing in direct mail and television, because we know our customers and our prospects eventually watch it. So I think that's kind of how you define your marketing landscape, and then really understand where you are in terms of your digital applications, leverage data and technology. I think that's kind of the first phase I use in terms of discovery, and that really helps me build a business case. Can help you guys also build a business case and saying, hey, the 4 or 5 areas we need to think about, and get a seat at table with the leadership team. Next slide, please. And I mean, if you build something from scratch, is my framework, my personal favorite is everything starts with your CRM and your data. You build your CRM, then marry together with all the second party, third party data analytics you have. After you've done that, then you essentially use your marketing automation platform, and then you can optimize for experience. I fundamentally believe CRM and data is very important, because if you don't have the foundation elements, your marketing automation tools can't really help you, right? If your data is not clean, you're targeting the wrong customers, you're not going to really move the dial, and you can build the best experience. But if it's the wrong customer coming in, they'll never buy from you. So that's kind of my pillar. I call it the core. Is if you were to start from scratch, I'll probably first focus on the CRM, then really have a data platform on top of it, build your marketing automation capability on top of it, and then kind of optimize for your experience, advertising, and promotion. So some of the people I've seen, they start with your experience and then try to figure out their marketing automation. And then last, they say, oh my God, I don't have a CRM. So I was probably, being a marketer, I'd probably start from the reverse. And it's helped me out in delivering kind of good numbers for the last couple of years during the pandemic. Next slide, please. So I think if this is kind of something I put together, is that if you were to start from scratch, where would you invest? So I'll like I said, first I would invest in a CRM. Second, I would invest in a customer 360 data platform that goes beyond the CRM. It takes your member and non-member data, or customer and prospect data. You build a marketing experience platform on top of it. And then once you acquire a customer, focus on loyalty. Because a lot of people focus on acquisition, not enough people focus on engagement and retention, and then always be looking at new capabilities. The example I use always is basically the cable providers. They will probably pay somebody $600 to acquire, but if you're a customer as saying, hey, I want to leave, they probably won't give you anything. So I think they love acquisition, but loyalty is what I say pays the bill. So if you keep in mind, I think they'll probably help you out as well. Next slide, please. So this is kind of things I've learned basically along the way. I want to put, say, the mistakes I've made or things I've learned is that when I started my career, I was more focused on product, I was more focused on technology. I really didn't have a full view in what really drives the business. So now sitting at a leadership role, I understand the KPIs of the organization. So I then tell people, guys, I mean, focus on business insights versus data collection, because I've seen that when you take on a data project, you'll probably spend millions of dollars in terms of collecting data without really understanding the use case of why it's important to the business. And that's where I think most data projects fail. So I always ask the question, hey, what are the business insights we can draw? Can we use them in our marketing and retention and engagement? And that really helps us out. The second one is the data is a business function versus the technology. I know a lot of organizations, it resides under technology. It's more than a data warehouse. It's more than essentially just building a platform. So if the data residing in the technology function, I don't think you can fundamentally get too much value unless you have a business partner who's driving the need of leveraging data. We always have people kind of selling as the best technology, whether it's marketing technology, CRM, or data. And my view has changed over time. Earlier, I should think, hey, let's get the best technology. But technology is becoming more and more of a commodity. So I would probably not focus on the best technology. I'll probably focus on the best use case. I've seen it happen in the past. People take a technology platform and saying, okay, now what are your business needs? Let's just retrofit it. It never works. It's painful. And most of these projects kind of shut down. So you really have to think through is saying, hey, what are the business needs? And then choose a technology or a platform which meets those business needs. Last but not the least, clean your data. I've seen some of my campaigns not work because the data is not clean. We don't invest enough dollars in cleaning the data. We just transpose data from 10 different systems into one central data repository, whether you call it a data lake or a data warehouse or a customer data platform or 360 platform, and just say, hey, if you've got the data, let's make it run. So spend the time in data hygiene and cleaning it, because that really matters. And I'll say don't overinvest. Crawl, walk, run is the approach we take. I don't use 80% of data we collect. It's not necessarily we collect it, we use for analysis, but for marketing purposes, I'm happy with using 20-25 fields on a regular basis versus 300 to 400 data fields we have. So I think that's kind of been my journey. Next slide, please. And end of the day, right, I tell people, right, it's all about the customer experience. When you spend millions of dollars getting people to the door, you want to make sure that they stick. And these are kind of three things in today's modern marketing you have to worry about. Do you have the right marketing? Are you sending the right messages? Do you have the right product? If they come look at your marketing and use the product, will they be satisfied with it? Do you have the right data and technology and insights to kind of help customers along the way and give you enough information to show you could request the new changes and features and make sure the customer sticks around? So this is kind of my kind of, I'll say, mantra in a nutshell, and open to questions as we go. That's all I have. I went through it real fast because I was telling Subra I want to leave enough time for Q&A versus being a monologue. So
no, not at all. In fact, thanks for the wonderful keynote, Gaurav. In fact, we will now open it up for Q&A. So in case you'd like to ask Gaurav any questions, I have quite a few. So I mean, I'm going to keep asking them in between your questions. So please do raise your hand in MS Teams, or if you're not able to do that, just type in your question. You raise your hand, and the organizers should allow you in. So we are ready to take questions. So while we wait for folks to join in, Gaurav, let me just sort of kickstart and ask you. So I think one of the things that I'm particularly keen to understand is the people element, right? So we often speak of technology and how to leverage it, but I think it goes hand in hand with pulling a team along, pulling the entire organizations, your IT teams and your leadership and the rest of the team along, right? So how do you, as a marketing leader, do something like this, in the sense that you teach your team to really embrace risks and to sort of work with disruptive technology? So any thoughts on that front?
So I think I always lead with what the business driver. A lot of times I've heard, if you look at one of the slides which had those 5 kind of things, is business landscape, marketing landscape. I think everybody has to be in the same page. I think we get so focused on execution that we forget to give the entire team the purpose, right? Why are we going through change? What's the impact to the customer? What's the impact of business? I think whether you're technology, whether you're data, whether you're legal compliance, you get the entire team together and saying why it's important for the enterprise. So I think that's what we feel. I think change management is the hardest part, but that really becomes the leader's DNA. It's not about the how, it's about why you're doing it, and the how becomes a lot easier. I think a lot of people get confused in saying, I've done such a good job in my part, but I don't understand what it really means. So I think how to share the vision, get the team on board, and things will always go down south. No project I know in the history, I know maybe Subra, you guys have pulled miracles, goes as planned. Things come in, injects happen, the environment changes. How do you really build an agile team and be okay with making mistakes? That's why I kind of say crawl, walk, run. You have to overinvest in the crawl phase, lesson learned, and then you kind of walk and just execute. I think leadership has a lot of patience. If you tell them the complete story, and if you tell them, oh, I can get done in 6 months, no, guys, here's the plan. It'll be a 3-year journey. We'll do something in Q1, something in Q2. We learn the lessons and we evolve, because it's hard. It's never easy.
Understood. I think the whole notion of crawl, walk, run is something that at least I also advocate to customers I speak to, that think big, have a big vision, but when you kick off, start small, start with use cases, start with 1 or 2 use cases. And I think you were talking about that as well. Be use case focused, start small, and then sort of build on that quarter on quarter. I think that clearly is the recipe for success, for sure.
Yeah, I think what's going to get tough. I know everybody's 100% remote. We've noticed in our teams also. It's easy to kind of run a project and a program which is already in motion, but just kick off any strategic project and get people aligned on Zoom and Teams. I think that's going to be the challenge, is how do you really make sure that you can get stuff done in the global? You have efficiencies, but how do you align people? I think alignment is the biggest opportunity. I don't know how to solve that problem. If you guys have any guidelines on how it's worked for your team, I'd love to hear it. But I think that's where I think it gets tough for organizational leaders.
Absolutely, absolutely. For anyone has any questions? Okay, we have Ashish joining us. Ashish, go ahead.
Yeah, Ashish.
Hi, Gaurav. Thank you, first of all, for a very good presentation there and sharing your experience. So I have actually two questions, but if I'm allowed to ask only one, then I'd love to know how do you decide whether picking up a CDP solution versus a marketing data hub or customer 360 solution? And
Yeah.
the second question is more on the use cases. If you were to field a CDP, what would be a practical way of starting small and the crawl, walk, run approach that you advocated?
Yes, I think that you had mentioned is like Subra also mentioned the use case pretty important, right? Because we can't solve world hunger. Is saying what is the easiest use case we could take and release and do. First of all, I think I'm a huge fan of first party data. Do we have all the data in house? And if not, then do we have? I mean, with I don't know what the cookieless world looks like. Can we utilize third party data in 2 or 3 years? I'm not sure. Can build your first party data, and then if you can really marry second party and third party, and then use a platform which meets your need. Because I know B2C is going to be a lot different than B2B. And how do you make sure you can reach the customer and you really have data insights? Some of the CDPs will give you a 360 view. Some of the CDPs won't give you the insights. So I will actually look at the insights. Yeah, I'm using a CDP. Forget the cost, right? Is it getting me the insights? Can I marry all the data I have with them? And can they give me decisions really fast? Because in digital marketing, you really need to make decisions on the fly. And I typically kill campaigns very earlier on if the read is not good. I'm not spending more money. So I think it's going to be important. And clean the data, right? The CDP is not going to work with you if your data hygiene is not there. Because I've seen that I'll just retrofit data and say, man, it's not making sense. It's not a CDP's fault. Your data is unclean. So what was the second question, Ashish? Sorry, I forgot that. So
Ashish, you're on mute. I think just unmute yourself, please.
Oh, thank you. What might be the good use case if you were to start with a CDP?
So I'll take the most complicated, right? I'll probably, if you looked at my customer journey, because that's what I think at some point I'll take the easiest use case. In this case, I'll take the hardest use case, saying, hey, we actually evolved to the worst case scenario. If your CDP could meet that, then your use case, the front end should be easy. Because it's very difficult to change your CDP in midstream because say, oh my God, I did the easiest use case. They can't meet my need. I've invested 2 years and $1 million. Now I can't go to my boss and say, man, I messed up, right? So I think use that and give them. I've done in the past. I've actually given my partners the use cases upfront and gone through the RFP processing. Can you show how will you execute versus just only PowerPoint? Do the hard work upfront. They'll be happy, and you'll be happy too. So,
That's a great advice. Thank you, Gaurav.
thanks, Ashish.
Okay, we have 5 minutes more. So, Tim's on. Go ahead, Tim.
Gaurav, good morning, sir. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. We've talked a lot about data today. We talked a lot about the processes and the vision that you have, which is wonderful. But when we get down to it, how important, how much stress and effort, or was it smooth to get the data security cleared through compliance and to make sure that you felt comfortable with security in general of the data, being at a bank and being such an influential person within the credit union? Can you share with us and the other attendees the challenges or the opportunities you faced?
Yeah, so I always, and knowing working in financial institution like you guys do, they are very conservative. They care about PII and they are not as forward looking like we guys are. We live and breathe data, they don't. So I think whenever we start engaging in the RFP, I get my compliance team involved upfront because I will say it honestly, it's faster to execute a contract with a partner than get our internal compliance aligned. So I build in enough time. We have to educate them because they are worried about PII, security hacks. Is the vendor getting all my PII information? So tomorrow a hack happens, then I'm on the hook for all the losses. So I think one is education. And secondly, putting the guardrails together and making them comfortable that, hey, tomorrow if you run an audit, the partner can do the audit and fairly comfortable. It's never an easy process because any financial institution will have people who've been there 25, 30 years and they have risk averse. And data is the biggest source of risk for them. And second is hacking, right? If we get hacked. So unfortunately, both fall under my area. And it takes longer, Tim, to be very honest, but we work through it because once you get that thing done, it's so easy because I'll say in a financial institution probably take 3 to 6 months to get your compliance comfortable.
Right.
So
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm sure it's challenging, but you sounded like you got it done. So that's the best part about the whole
yeah,
story.
because sometimes the partner will ask us, right? They're saying, why is it taking so much time? And it's not that we are sleeping and not acting on it, but it's internal stakeholders we have to feel comfortable because we have regulators we have to kind of talk to. So I think it's a lot harder. I wish I could just buy software and plug it. Retail is a lot easier.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we have time for one more question. So if anyone has any other question, please jump in. Okay, fantastic. So Gaurav, thank you once again. Really, really appreciate your time this morning. It was incredible listening to you. So for the folks who are listening in, we will be sharing the conference presentation as well as the video of the conference as well. So keep looking out for that. Gaurav, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your keynote. Thanks for joining us.